Yes, welcome once again, my old friends, to the 25th Colonel Marbles Miniatures Review vidcast, in which I pontificate to no discernible gain on the subject of 28 to 32mm sci-fi and fantasy miniatures released this week. I'm very pleased to say the show continues to be sponsored by Rattlehead Games, fine purveyors of many of the independent sci-fi and fantasy figures featured in the show. So we kick off our countdown this week with Dark Age Games. This is a special edition miniature only available with the box set of the Forsaken Faithful. To be honest, there's not much for me to get excited about here. It's very standard fare, and the two hammers she's holding just look clumsy. Next up at number 9 is Hassle-Free Miniatures. This is a halfling Reman General, Decimus Meridius Minimus. Another neat sculpt from Kev White, but the subject doesn't really do a lot for me, which frankly is a common problem I have with a lot of hassle-free stuff. I'm not sure why. And next up at 8 we have Newbold World. This is an Azurian Spacer, designed by Ian Newbold and sculpted by Martin Baker. I rather like these. They are fun sci-fi figures, and as they are relatively inexpensive, they'll make good alien cannon fodder for my space samurai army. At 7 we have Impact Miniatures. Australian sculptor Victoria Lamb has produced these two greens of some crocodile players for an Egyptian-themed Blood Bowl team. And very fine figures they are too. It would be great to see a whole croc team eventually. And at 6 we have Urban Wars Metropolis. This is the latest of the claws, or war beasts, for the new sci-fi game. It's a Corellon, think aliens, Drake, and looks like a pretty fearsome beastie standing about 12 centimetres high. I don't think the undersized wings do it any favours, and I'd like to see a painted version before I pass the final judgment. But to be honest, this really isn't up to the standard of the previous claws we've seen from Urban Mammoth. Privateer Press's Hordes are at number 5. This is one of two figures from the Chromac the Ravenous box set. This is the unenraged version, where you can see he's holding two bloody enormous axes. And this of course is him after his slain star Warp Spasm. It's a pretty cool model, but I'm not sure about pricing. He won't be cheap, that's for sure. New miniature game Spine Spur is at number 4 this week. Comfy Chair Games are the name of the company releasing this Spine Spur game. They're calling it a modern survival horror game, and it's coming out in July 2007. And this is Dr. Akron in beast form, apparently. And this Mr. Jingles figure is really fantastic, although he looks worryingly like my old real-life chum Uncle Evil. Anyway, he's set to sell for $7.99 US. And storming into the top 3 this week, at number 3, it's Tannhauser. French games company Take On You have released unpainted versions of their resin miniatures from their weird World War II Tannhauser board game. They are available as a set of 10 for €17.15. Basically, if you love vampire-stroke-werewolf-fueled Uber-Nazis, and let's face it, who doesn't, you're going to love these. Some great sculpts in there. My only query would be about the exact scale of these beauties. Anima Tactics have to settle for second place this week. This is Jiang Pao, a 32mm metal miniature sculpted by Chaz Elliott. This really is a nice mini. Is it me, or does she look a little bit like Patsy Kensit? Anyway, there's no word on pricing as yet, but this is a really beautiful sculpt, and one I'm definitely considering picking up for my collection. Sponsored in part by Blue Table Painting, your first choice for an excellent miniatures painting service. But yes, my dear chums, we cross the English Channel once more for the number 1 spot, which goes to Rackham. First up is this very cool looking Phidias figure. I love that Long Rider's flapping coat thing he's got going on, although I'm a bit concerned about that bayonet at the end of his gun there. And this self-proclaimed Lord of Carnage is another exceptionally nice bad boy from Rackham. A fantastically detailed sculpt. I love the monstrously huge sword on his back. It'd certainly make a great RPG character. And finally you can see there's another great mini here. He's called Scruple, and as you can see, he's also got a huge sword fetish as far as I can tell. And there's nothing wrong with that where I come from. And that, I'm afraid, rather sadly, brings us to the end of another Colonel Marbles Miniatures Review vidcast. I'll see you again next week, and thanks for tuning in.